Ugh, stupid daylight savings time. Okay, we touched on last time that Glenn A. Larson was one of the biggest names in television production in the 1980s. However, he wasn't really, how would you say it, original. Much of his productions in the late 70s and 80s, one way or another, were trying to capitalize off of the success of other properties. Even Battlestar Galactica was attempting to piggyback the success of Star Wars. Probably the most original creation of his was Knight Rider, but even that arguably was just a slight variation on the type of shows that were becoming popular in the 1980s. If truckers were America's fascination in the mid to late 70s, it looks like they were replaced with detectives as we crossed over into the next decade. But not hard-nosed trench coat-wearing gumshoes of the Pulp Fiction era. No, we're talking about detectives with style. James Bond-type detectives. Rich, glamorous jet-setters who were already filthy rich and lived a life of luxury and leisure, traveling the world everywhere, and basically just solved mysteries for the fun of it. Or maybe to make a career writing books about it. It looks like the first of this type to be a big hit on the small screen was Heart to Heart, which was quickly followed by the likes of Cagney and Lacey and Remington Steele. Heck, Larson by this point had already dove into the waters of this genre with Magnum P.I. But to his credit, it looks like Larson did indeed think he needed to make a crime drama that would stand out from all the rest. The result? Manimal! Premiering in September 1983 and running for a grand total of 8 episodes on NBC, Manimal was a clear case of trying to add a bit of science fiction to the crime drama craze of this time period. So, yeah, I give Larson credit for at least trying to add something different to the genre. Why didn't it exactly work? It's time to find out. We open at a shooting range where apparently a big deal of illicit weapons is about to go down.
These weapons should have quite an impact on our cause.
I'm not interested in your cause, Mr. Saida, only in your money.
Make your own NRA jokes, I'm trying to keep politics out of my reviews. But unbeknownst to them, they are being watched by Bagheera. And then this guy shows up claiming to be with the police to get a free cab ride following the gun nuts. Then Big Kitty is back, sneaking into the truck that's apparently shipping explosives disguised as sewing machines, which is still only the second goofiest cover behind a secret agent claiming he sells greeting cards. Sure enough, the cops on patrol don't buy the disguise and tail the truck as well. Then Kitty causes the truck to crash and come completely apart because apparently the truck was built like one huge diorama piece. One guy blows up everything in the truck, shoots one cop and gets away. Yeah, I don't think you're getting paid for this haul. While the other shoots the kitty but gets hit by another cab while the female cop sees the kitty and goes after it because that's smart to abandon the bus you're currently on to track a wild animal alone, and she finds...
Please, don't shoot. I'm not armed.
My God, there's a wild animal on the loose. You could have been killed.
Well, then it seems that I owe you my life.
It's a dead end. There's no way out.
Yeah, the first attempt to make a Black Panther movie didn't turn out so well. Naturally, Miss Officer here wants to keep working on the case, and her chief suggests she talk to an NYU professor that consults for them and specializes in using animals in police work. When she shows up at the class, guess who the professor is?
Midtown Manhattan. About 3 in the morning.
Oh, I'm afraid we professors can't keep those sort of hours.
Yeah, well, it was dark. I I guess I have you confused with someone else.
It was probably just some GQ model walking around that time of night or something. This is a 90-minute pilot, so I'm going to sum it up as best as possible. As this Remington Steel knockoff agrees to help the officer track down these smugglers, who are actually working for anarchists that are being supplied by a turncoat army colonel, and the leader of which is played by former Bond girl Ursula Andress, she begins to suspect more and more that he and Big Kitty just might be one and the same. To the point where she grabs hold of a poison snake thinking it's him, when it turns out it isn't. Man, it's been a while since I've seen a character this bright and this stupid at the same time. Sure enough, she learns through his books that he inherited from his father the ability to transform into animal creatures, finally being able to master it in order to escape captivity in the Vietnam War with his friend Ty Earl. And they've been together ever since, to the point where if this was released 30 years later, there would be shipping fic all over the web. At any rate, the officer agrees to the professor's help in catching the smugglers, but when she gets caught by them, he has to be the big damn hero and save her, with the help of an entire army of animals he springs from the zoo. Because he can apparently mind talk to animals as well. They naturally stop the anarchists, of course by them being cornered by Big Kitty in the end, and the pilot concludes with a natural hint that romance is going to blossom between the professor and the cop that really never goes anywhere in the series, as the military colonel that was secretly supplying the anarchists gets his own comeuppance due to... Why do I feel half this show's budget was paid to Spielberg just for the rights to use that music? That's basically the gist of the show. Professor Jonathan Chase and his buddy Ty assist Officer Brooke McKenzie solving crimes and mysteries in the city, with Chase ultimately needing his Beast Boy / Dr. Dolittle abilities to solve everything in the end. Now if you didn't get all of that, don't worry, because each episode that came after the pilot did include this whole exposition piece describing what the show was about.
Dr. Jonathan Chase. Wealthy, young, handsome. A man with the brightest of futures. A man with the darkest of pasts.
Of course, there have been other shows that have done this, like Quantum Leap and Highlander, but those shows gave you the exposition dump first and then went to the title sequence, which makes sense if you're hoping to use such exposition to draw in a first-time viewer. This show starts with the musical title sequence and then the exposition, in a way that makes me assume the show's first commercial break always came in between the two. That's good programming. Oh, and yes, in case you didn't notice, for the series, Glenn Turman was replaced as the role of Ty with Michael D. Roberts. Who knew Ike Perlmutter was working on this show? But other than those tiny little annoyances, what was it really that caused this show to just not click with audiences? One reason I might say is they don't really seem to do that much with Chase's abilities. Don't get me wrong, they're still integral to the plot, but it still seems like they could have done more with them. Thanks almost certainly to a limited budget, we see Chase turn into the Panther and or the Hawk in every single episode because those were the only transformation sequences they could create. I guess it makes some sense that Chase would prefer these forms because of the ability to fly and that the Panther is supposedly a very silent walker, but it can get kind of repetitive. By the way, the actual transformation sequences, right out of the uncanny valley if you know what I mean. Jeez, and Cutter thought watching Sheena transform was unsettling. There are episodes that showcase other animals, but even then there are a few cop-outs. For example, there's one episode where the baddies are taken out by an elephant, and it's revealed that Chase wasn't actually the elephant, he just commanded one. In another, he only studies the movements of animals so he can somehow mimic them as a human in a fight with this martial arts gangster or something. But more than that, the show never seems to go into too many details as to the ultimate source and depth of these powers. It was only alluded to that Chase gained all these abilities from his father in the pilot, and then we're shown a flashback of said father telling a young Chase about them before dying in that aforementioned expo dump every episode. There's also nothing in regards to side effects or other ways that Chase having these abilities affect him, so they're little more than plot devices. Yeah, it's not a good look when Sheena would go further into depth with its supernatural abilities than you do. That all might be okay if they made the show more character-driven, but they don't go that in-depth on the characters either. Like I said, the pilot ended with the illusion that Chase and Mackenzie would become a couple, and then not much more of that for the rest of the series. Ordinarily, I would salute a show that didn't make the male-female main duo ultimately start boinking, but what good is it to suggest they will in the first episode and then go nowhere with it? The only other thing the show has is the crime element, and there's no mystery there because we're always shown who the villains are in every episode. It's almost like a precursor to Law and Order with animals, but no compelling characters like a Lenny Briscoe or John Munch to pull it off. So yeah, with all that taken into account, it shouldn't be any surprise the show never made it higher than 90th in the ratings and was given the axe by December of '83. It's a show that really did have potential, but at the end of it all, Manimal just comes off as dull. It's a mystery without intrigue, a buddy cop show without great character interaction, and a sci-fi adventure where the sci-fi elements aren't explored to their fullest potential. It ultimately looks like a show that tried to be everything at once, but produced almost nothing. For what it's worth, for this review, I did watch at least the first episode of another show that used a similar concept, the TV adaptation of the book series Animorphs, and I do think it did a slightly better job on some points, particularly on how and where the transformation abilities came from. Maybe I'll get into reviewing that series in more detail at a later date, but for now, all I can say is that Manimal was an outright jungle of disappointment. But I suppose it's not the dumbest thing anyone's ever created involving animals and crime fighting. Oh well, time to go back and see if my army of ninja cats has managed to thwart another mad scientist supervillain again. See you next time on TV Trash!